Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. I'm Amy Shannon, but you can call me Amy. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome. I hope all is well with you. I'm Amy, and today I'm talking about Gary Orleck's book, Travels with Maurice, an outrageous European adventure in 1968. This is one of those times where the author prefer, for whatever reason, that I discuss their book, and I'm always honored to do so. I like talking about the books that I read, and I don't get to do it very often. So, Travels with Maurice, an outrageous European adventure in 1968. It's just had its second printing, and I was honored to be a part of Gary's team to well, he hired me to publish his book, DIY, with Amazon. And I helped him put the book cover together. So there's never any conflict. It's, I read the story, I like it. I actually read and reviewed his book when he first had it published. So then I just kind of got to know Gary through his writing and our, I think we formed a bit of a friendship. Um, you know, he's a very nice man, and I enjoy reading his work or just chat. We chat through email sometimes, and it's just pretty amazing. So without further ado, let me talk more about the book. And basically, Gary just was, as he would put it, he was just a normal college kid, taking classes, working a job. And there was this buzz about this guy named Maurice around the college campus. And like he was some Iranian prince or whatever. And they had a chance encounter, and Gary was actually surprised that Maurice even knew who he was. And I just, it's funny because Gary says it's an unbelievable story, yet it's true because nobody can make the story up. Nobody. And I totally agree. It's one of those things that you just kind of want to like, oh, this is so exciting. And wow, you got to do this and that and this and that. And Gary describes Maurice as where every woman wanted to be with him and every man wanted to be him. So I find that was very interesting about the story. The 19,985 miles, 12 country adventure in 1968, Gary and Maurice formed a formidable friendship while perusing the London music scene, which included The Who, Elton John, the Rolling Stones, and even the Beatles. And I hope you know who I'm talking about. Maurice was the son of the richest Iranian man, and he shares his life and his culture with Gary as they dined with kings and queens, gambled with the Shah of Iran and his wife, Her Royal Highness Empress Farah, while also learning the ins and outs of the Iranian government, its corruption, and the reasons the Shah was doomed to fail. See them come of age while rubbing elbows with other famous persons, being asked to dance by Brigitte Bardot, and even was rescued out of handcuffs by Shirley Temple Black during the Russian invasion of Czechoslovakia during the summer of 1968. A simple thank you led to the trip of a lifetime. And this is a pretty interesting and amazing story. And I really got into it. So I'm going to read an excerpt, and my excerpt is from chapter 1, and it's when Gary and Maurice had their first chance encounter. And it's written in first person, so Gary is telling his story. I first met Maurice at Babson College in Wellesley, Massachusetts. It was a traditional East Coast private school, the type where there are more trees than students. I was earning a business degree there, and so was Maurice. Later, it felt like fate that out of all the colleges in America, Maurice and I chose the same one. I actually heard about him before I ever laid eyes on him. There were whispers running through the school that a fabulously wealthy Iranian student had enrolled that year. Some people claimed he was a prince, a member of the Iranian royal family. Others said he was the son of an oil baron and that he lived in a palace with a tiger back home. One thing everyone agreed on was that he liked to gamble, and he could always be found at the local fraternity poker game late at night, which was unusual for a student from Iran. That's where I first saw him, hazed by the smoke and darkness of a college poker room. I played occasionally for a few dollars a hand, but being a kid from Rhode Island whose father owned a tire repair shop, I knew I could quickly get in over my head, which I never wanted to do. Maurice looked like he belonged at that table. His dark hair was perfectly slicked back. His eyes darted from his very large pile of chips to the dealer's hands and back again. His smart jacket In his in his smart jacket, it looked like any or all of the tall tales being told across campus might be true. He looked like he might own a pet tiger. I only played a couple of hands of poker that night. Maurice was on a hot streak and quickly cleaned me out of what few chips I had. He was polite but serious about the game, and he wished me a cordial good night when I left the table. I left with more questions running through my mind about this mysterious Iranian man. Despite the relatively small campus, I didn't run into Maurice again until months later. 13 guys, all from my graduating class, descended on Bermuda during spring break in 1965. The holiday turned young men who had been relatively model citizens back on campus into creatures who only wanted women, alcohol, and sun in that order. Our leader, by popular demand, was Maurice. On the plane trip, he paid for 3 rounds of drinks for all the boys on board. Wherever Maurice was, the party followed. He had a magnetic quality about him that made you want to do whatever he said, not because you felt like you had to, but because you wanted to, for him and for yourself. On the first evening, Maurice set the precedent for the entire trip. He led us to a bar across the road from our hotel to have drinks while we waited for our scooters to be prepped for the rest of the trip. Maurice said the first round was on him, and a cheer erupted from our group. Once the drinks were no more, the group dispersed outside to wait for the scooters, leaving Maurice to pay the bill. I thought it was rude how nobody had offered to buy Maurice a drink in return or thanked him. I took it upon myself to do so. I approached him while he stood at the bar, wallet in hand. Hey, I said, I'm Gary. Yes, I know who you are. Gary, he replied. The last syllable of the name was so stretched out that it became like a protracted E sound. Thanks for the round. Can I buy you a drink? A huge grin across his face. Yes, thank you, he replied. It's rare that someone offers to buy me a drink. What will it be? 2 beers. I signaled to the bartender, and he popped the tops of 2 bottles. We clinked glasses and chatted for a short time. I learned a little bit about him. He was, in fact, from Iran, but not a member of the royal family, as some claimed, although I would later learn that his family's relationship with the Shah and the royalty in general was a lot more involved than he let on. He, like me, was studying business and hoped to start his own company someday. I wondered why he had chose Babson when it seemed like he had the entire globe at his fingertips, but I didn't ask. Something about him was evasive, protective, as if he were holding cards close to his chest. After a few more minutes, whoop went up from the boys outside. The scooters were ready. Time to go, Gary, Maurice said with a smile. I didn't know it then, but this seemingly meaningless conversation would change my life forever. And it did. And that is just the beginning of their adventure. Like I said, I had the pleasure of reading this book. I've also had the pleasure of getting to know Gary. And that is one thing that I enjoy when I can um, have conversations with authors, whether it's on the phone or through email, just being able to, because sometimes you just need someone to talk to, and it doesn't have to be about your work, but it's nice to know that when you've written something, and you've shared it with somebody, that they actually liked it. And I did love it. I really did. I got to like it a lot. His story, it gave me a new insight into Gary himself. So I did write a review for it. Uh, I gave it 4 stars. Sparked memories. Gary Orleck brings his memoir to life. What a grand title, and travels with Maurice, an outrageous European adventure in 1968. I haven't read work from the author before, but I enjoyed the story. The prologue sets the tone for what sparked the story. The story is narrated in first person, revolves around adventures with Maurice, a dear friend to the narrator, the author, probably best friend. A chance encounter with Maurice, who refers to Gary as Gary, brings on the adventure. I could see his mind working for the moment he responded, Gary, let's say we take these $3,000 with us, and when one of us goes broke, we'll both come back home. This is a story about the life that Gary led, and each time he and Maurice would meet, it was always interesting and sometimes dangerous. I enjoyed reading Gary's story as well as Maurice's story because one adventure changed their lives. It's a lifetime of stories and very enjoyable. Travels with Maurice, an outrageous European adventure, is a recommendation by Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. And you can find this book on Amazon, and you can visit Gary's website at GaryOrleckAuthor.wordpress.com. And I enjoyed reading this book, and I also like that I am able to share these stories with you. So if you're an author who wants to be on the show, or you just want your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast for more information. Thank you, and I'll talk to you. This has been Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Thank you for listening, and always be kind and stay safe. Thank you. Next week.